What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Limelight Highlight, your silver lining space to take a break from the stressful everyday. As with each and every episode of every week, I am your host, Jay Rose, and I hope everybody had a very fun and productive weekend. I know for a fact I definitely did, mainly because I've been off for the last 5 days, and the Eagles won, the Cowboys lost. I'm tied for first place in my fantasy league for the second weekend in a row, so life's pretty good. I got my floors done, had a bunch of remodeling. It's finally over, so I can get back to my regularly scheduled life as I always am. As for upcoming events, I don't really have anything listed for this week, but the Block is Back did have their tailgate, that fundraiser that we've been kind of promoting and talking about. And because we smashed the Jets, I'm sure it was even more fun than it was last year because unfortunately we lost to the Vikings on that last tailgate. But regardless, still a lot of fun. I seen a lot of people down on Instagram and it looked like a good time. So with that being said, we don't have much for updates, so we're going to go straight into the podcast today. Now, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. And if you've been a constant listener, then I think you'll enjoy this episode a lot. Today's episode is an update from a story that I reported back in May on a different episode. If you want to listen to the first episode, I recommend you guys going back. The episode number is 22 and it's labeled The Ocean Cleanup. I did that back in May. So I think if you guys want to get more familiar with this specific story and get the facts that I'm about to mention, you can. If you don't want to go back and listen, then that's fine as well. I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version of the story and a little synopsis of it. So back in May, I did a story on a company called The Ocean Cleanup, whose mission is to develop advanced technology to rid the world's oceans of plastic. Now, the reason I'm coming back to this particular story is because everything going on in the news with the media right now, even, actually a listener of the podcast shared their story a couple weeks ago about that girl, Greta Thunberg from Sweden, I think. The little girl going around trying to get everybody to be more conscious about the way they're polluting the air, bringing about ways we can help our climate. Anyway, the more I hop on social media or just read the news or listen to the news, the more I'm seeing articles about what we're doing to the climate and Earth and our waters and how we need to change and make the world a little bit better, which I love, by the way, because it's finally getting the well-deserved attention that it seriously needs. So in a sense, it's always been a topic in the news because, but more and more I'm reading into it, the more I'm realizing it's changed from that idea of a hoax or denial that climate change is happening. Not that there's still not deniers out there, but to a serious topic. It went from a hoax or things that people don't want to really believe to a serious topic on what we really need to do to reverse the damage or at least slow down the radical change that we're causing our climate or the earth to warm or rapidly change, because we're seeing, the evidence is there. You have these natural disasters that are constantly occurring in places. Winter is coming sooner. The days are getting hotter. And I know the world is changing, and for the most part, it's not an argument on whether or not climate change is real. The argument kind of stems and falls into the category of, are we the ones making it change more rapidly? And for some reason, a lot of people don't think that. They think it's just a cycle that the earth is going through, but there's places that you can't even see the sun because of the smog, like LA. It's ridiculous. But regardless of how many morons out there still deny the fact that we as a species are making these changes occur faster and faster, it's something that's really happening, and it's in the news a lot. So back to the topic at hand with the Ocean Cleanup Company. The company has huge goals on how to clean up the ocean, and I'm 100% on board with them. When I first talked about it, I loved the idea. of what they wanted to do, as well as the fact that they were financially backed by big tech companies like PayPal and others. And even still, their goal was so big, it really almost seemed something that wasn't going to happen or be 100% attainable. You know, you always hear those egregious goals, by this time we want this, and if you're a realist, you're kind of skeptical about it. Well, this brings me back to the updated story, because the company that's been making some serious strides, the ocean cleanup, they're actually making true to what they wanted to do. I know I keep saying we're going to get into the article, but just because I know some people are lazy, I'm going to do you solid and explain exactly how this company plans on cleaning the ocean. So this company has developed a huge floating boom system that I covered in that episode 22. It's designed to drift along with the local currents, creating this kind of U-shaped scoop formation. So while it floats, it acts like a filter, collecting trash with a huge net that ranges up to 10 feet below the surface of the water. So it can collect smaller fragments and particles that would usually be missed by other cleanup efforts or technology. I know a lot of people are concerned by it having a net and other fish, but I guess because the way the currents are pushing it into this U-shaped scoop, the current underneath it with the net, it's not so low that it's going to catch fish, and even if fish are around it, because it's being pushed, it's creating this kind of current where the fish are just going to go straight underneath it. It's kind of hard to get caught. So anyway, once the boom is full, a vessel will actually be deployed to meet up with the boom and collect the plastic and transport it to a land for recycling and being, what can be recycled, what can't be. And that's just the gist of how it operates. Now that you're a little more familiar with the system and the company, we can actually get into the update that I wanted to talk about to begin with. So after 1 year testing, the company actually announced that their system is successful. It's successfully capturing and collecting plastic debris. That episode that I keep referring back to, we actually also discussed a thing known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And if this is your first time, or if you don't really remember what it is, hearing the name, then be prepared to be disgusted with humanity a little more than you originally might be. And I say this because the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is so big, it can be easily seen from space via satellites. It's roughly twice the size of Texas. Let me reiterate that for you in case it wasn't clear the first time. Due to our disgusting habits of polluting our ocean, there's a freaking garbage patch in the Pacific the size of 2 Texas states just floating out in our ocean. And for the most part, people don't even know about it. The reason I bring this massively disgusting fact up is because for the first time in history, conservationists have actually collected trash from this 2 Texas-sized trash heap. The garbage patch was actually first detected in the 90s. And when scientists first seen it and were trying to figure out what they could do with it, whether, how to clean it up and things, they estimated that it take up to 1,000 years to clean it up. That's how big it was in the 90s. So you can only imagine how much more we're since then have been adding to it. So now it's the size of 2 Texas states. So they didn't have the technology back then, or the ambition of a Dutch man named Boyan Slat, who's actually the inventor of this technology. And when he first announced himself, he kind of made a name for himself. He made a bold claim. He presented his idea of this boom system at a TEDx talk, saying that instead of 1,000 years, he could clean up the patch in less than 10. Granted, if he could get his idea built and put into place, of course, everybody needs money. But putting yourself out there with a claim that big would, like I said earlier, make anybody a skeptic. These scientists in the 90s said 1,000 years, and you're going to cut that off by a couple zeros. So, but anyway, that didn't stop him, and he dropped out of college and started bringing his plans to fruition, to life. He eventually got $2.2 billion in crowdfunding. I'm sorry, million, not billion. That's a lot of money. $1 million in crowdfunding, and ended up actually getting millions more through interested investors. As I mentioned before, some pretty big tech companies. He launched his system from Vancouver back in this past June. And it was the second attempt to prove that his system could really collect garbage from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And it was a pretty successful one, and actually, in addition to collecting visible pieces of plastic debris like big bottles and things that you can obviously see in the ocean, that big net that we talked about 10 feet underneath was actually able to collect. You guys ever hear of ghost nets? There's these large ghost nets that are usually either discarded or left behind from huge commercial fishing vessels. Well, it was capturing stuff like that too, as well as microplastics as small as a millimeter big or small, which actually comes to a pleasant surprise because even the company didn't, realize it could get so much plastic debris. So regardless of how successful the early models of the system that they developed were, there's always a ton of work to do. And because we tend to learn from mistakes or try to make things better along with how fast technology is being developed, they take the data they collect, and from the process and progress that they're making, they try to design a more bigger and better system to hack away at this Texas-sized trash heap and maybe bring some more life back into the oceans that we so sadly overfish and pollute. And at this rate, his bold claim went from a skeptic idea to something that's actually attainable. And I hope everybody can get on board and try to do their part with helping get the planet right and back in order. If right now you're thinking, I don't know what I can do to help the environment, I got some ideas for you. Maybe you can implement them in your life. And the best part of these ideas is there's not a really big change to your everyday life. It's not going to hinder you or keep you from doing things that you may think otherwise. So maybe, let's say you're craving seafood, and you can try to find a place that has seafood that's gathered from a sustainable source. Like I said before, overfishing is a huge global problem and can result in some serious habitat damage. And if you need more information on that, there's actually a website called Monterey Bay Seafood Watch that'll give you some insights and a list on where you can dine at sustainable restaurants. Or if you're looking to buy, you want groceries, you want to cook some fish and buy some seafood from stores, you can check out Marine Stewardship Council, and that'll list some stores that actually have, or products that actually are sustainably captured fish. So you're not overfishing or helping those places that constantly overfish. I'll list both of those in both those websites in the show notes. Another way you can help is reduce your plastic use, recycle, reuse some of those plastic items that you use. Just stop using one-time use plastics. Simple as that. You can reduce your energy use, like maybe switching out your light bulbs to something energy efficient. It'll help the environment as well as save you some money on your electric bill. You can keep the beaches, waterways clean. If you're at a lake, river, beach, whatever body of water you're hanging out at, depending on where you are in the States or whatever, clean up after yourself. Something you should be doing anyway. But even if it's something like the wind blows a plastic bag in front of you or a styrofoam cup, just pick it up. Pick it up. It only takes seconds to pick it up and throw it in the garbage. If you got some money and you like boating, be a responsible boater. Maybe use some maintenance and cleaning products that are less harmful to the environment and the ocean. And once again, just clean up after yourself. Dispose of waste in an environmentally safe way. Recycle. Simple way to do: paper, plastic cans, and glass. Separate your stuff after you use it. Go to the recycling center. They'll literally give you cash for your trash. There's so many ways, but lastly but not least, get involved. Go spread the word, volunteer, educate yourself on what more you can do. As hippie as it sounds, The world is our home. It's the only one we got, and we got to take care of it. There's so many places and organizations right now dedicated to helping clean the environment in the world, and just do your part. Any little bit can help. You're gonna make the biggest difference.